to my channel, art lovers. So in the last spread last week, we did this one here, which was full of wonderful, yummy textures and patterns. And then we added tissue prints over top. I had so much fun doing that, I want to repeat the process, but do it slightly different. I want to show you how you can take it to a different direction. And in that last one, I did all the background fun and pattern, and then I put the tissue prints over, and then I glazed the tissue prints. This time we're going to skip the tissue prints, and we're going to do something slightly different. So I just like to show you how you can have fun and go in many different directions. I'm using that same permanent stamp. Make sure you use a permanent one. Otherwise, everything runs and smudges when you put paint over it or gel medium. Now I showed you there on the outside edges of the square stamp. I'm trying hard not to get a square ridge from that stamp, so I purposely only pressed it with the middle of my hand on the ink pad, and now I'm using mostly the inside of that pad in different areas with different parts, sometimes my palm, sometimes my finger, just to get a variety of shapes and background imprints without having an outline of the stamp. This one here, the last one was like a mix of script and stamps, and this time it's more just a smudgy look, and I like that because I like that it gives a variety and it takes you to different depths depending on the pattern. So I'm going to do a lot of this all over the page, but mix up the stamps so that there's a variety. Having a lot of fun doing this. Instead of my usual way of having a blank spread and using pencil crayons and things like that to make mark making, this is just another way of doing mark making, but in a very, very busy and very dramatic and overall pattern kind of way. This stamp here is a script, which is just gibberish. And I do like the variety I have here. This time I'm going to go further than I did in the last spread. I'm going to use some stamps that have actual shapes, like these jagged lines. I love this one. I like going off the edge of the page with it. And I'm just distributing that in a few areas. Usually I like to do odd numbers, so 1, 3, or 5, that kind of thing. And now I've got another stamp which has got a squiggle line. So I'm using the background scribbles and smudges and script, if you will, as more of the real background layer, and then hopefully at some point these small stamps I'm doing now with definite shapes, they'll pop to the forward perhaps at some point. I just like to do the variety, so I'm going bonkers here. You might not have this kind of grungy kind of distress stamps. You might have flowers and birds and different things, plants, whatever you feel like doing, do it as an overall background. One time I did this with a great big sheet of tea bag paper, and I just did butterfly stamps all around the page, and then a little bit of messed up script, and it made a really wonderful background to do watercolor, to do wrapping paper. So that's why I'm going bonkers on the background stamp here, and then it will just be a very bold background once I add color. Now that I'm going to, the next stage will be adding paint and matte medium, I'm going to seal that inside seam with a strip of tape that I only press in the very seam of it, not the rest of it, because it tends to take apart some of this paper on the book. So the less I can press down on this tape, the better. It must be the book, because I've tried 2 different tapes now, and they both kind of strip off some of the paper when I pull it off. So what I'm trying to do is just create a background protective layer so that whatever I do now on this spread won't affect this back spread or the future white spread. And these acetate sheets that I have aren't quite big enough to cover all the way around, so that's why I have to build it up with the tape. So here I go. Let's have some fun. Normally I would put matte medium all over the spread like I just showed there, but this time before I do that, I want to do some patterns with modeling paste. And this time I've got different stencils for that. I might not use the bubble one, but for sure the one on my right hand I'm going to use, and the small dots. So this way I get a lot of busy patterns from the background stamps, and now I'm going to have shapes from these, from the modeling paste, picking up these stencils. But I'm doing it in a random manner. I'm just doing smudges of it here and there. And those little smudges of it will have the pattern of the crisscross, the basket weave. I'm not overthinking it either. I'm just sort of putting my brush down and letting it go and be intuitive. Those will dry, and later on they will pick up and move around paint in a really fun way. So let's do some on the right side. And again, different random spots. Nothing very defined. I want them at the end to just randomly show up here and there without obvious outlines. And once I lay this down, all of these modeling paste stencil patterns, because it's white on white, and I could see it there, but later on as I'm working on the book, I lose control, if you will, of where those were placed, because they're so subtle that I like that. I like that I don't know where they're going to pop up later on until after I show the paint. And that's the fun of it. I like this to be intuitive. I like surprises. I like things to just pop out. And so that's why I'm doing random patterns, and then I'll forget about it. I'll deal with colors and then see what gets revealed later on. It's so much fun doing this process. Very, very good mindfulness, which is why I call my channel Painting for Your Soul, because all of the things that we can do for fun and to just get lost in the moment, it's all good for our soul. I think we all work hard, we all do things, we all have issues, and it's really, really nice to have a good release like this. So I usually spend about, when I'm working on this book, for sure 20 minutes a day, just different layers, just to have fun with it. A lot of times I walk away and come back later when it's dry. Sometimes I've got a lot of time on my hands, so I blow dry each layer, and then I'm impatient to keep on moving along. But the whole idea is it's at my will whenever I'm in the mood. It's my playtime. So what I'm doing is good habits here, which I didn't do previously. You see where I sprayed there? I'm trying to clean the fresh modeling paste off of here, but everything you see there still revealed in white. That was paint that was put on months and months ago, and I probably didn't clean it properly, and now it's permanent. So it's kind of ruined the stencil as far as overall dots, but I don't mind when I use it that it's random. This one's got a few things stuck to it, so I'll clean that off. It's just good habit to do this whenever you can. Sometimes it's easy to do the modeling paste and then quickly set it to the side to keep working on your piece, and then you forget that you didn't clean your stencil. These are the colors I'm going to use again, but unlike the back page where I added blue, this time I want to do the oranges and reds and yellows, but also add a lot of light bright pink. So it's sort of a continuation of the effect of the last sprayed, but it's going to be bolder and brighter and slightly different direction. This is my favorite brush. It's very soft, long bristles, and it's a great brush to delicately spread paint around the page. I sprayed with water first, and I'm at the very bottom of this bottle of paint. I mean, there's hardly anything left in the very bottom. But I wanted to just, that top right overlap of two stamps and then the smudging, that reminds me of a petroglyph or a hieroglyph, whatever they call it. And I've done a lot of hunting for petroglyphs in the deserts, and I love being in the desert, and that reminded me of it. So this whole spread kind of reminds me of the desert and rocks and erosion and petroglyphs and you name it, just history. So in a way, it's like a page of history, but colored. And I like it. That's the vibe I like. So I'm going to sort of do a continual flow left to right of this yellow. And I may or may not do more yellow. For now, that's the direction I want to take it, and we'll see what gets revealed later on. I'm always mindful to take a straight edge of the paper towel to dab the inside crease of the book so that it doesn't pool in there and bleed through to the back. So here's a close-up of some of it. You can see the pattern. It's a little bit hard, but you can see it there. Again, it's very easy to forget about it now as we move forward painting and just let it get revealed as it will. It's a lot of fun. I love doing patterns, textures, layers, and depth. I like the illusion. I like color, movement, and energy. And for sure, this spread is going to be a good example of color, movement, and energy. So I've got the yellow there. It's nice and dry. But there are those dots that I did with the modeling paste. So what I'm doing is rubbing with paper towel and rubbing alcohol, just using the flat of my hands to rub the top surface of those dots, and it reveals the color, the white color of the paste there. And I just thought I'd try that out rather than leaving yellow dots on yellow background. And while I was at it, I just rubbed any other area that I wanted to keep clean. And then I just sprayed with clean water over top because the rubbing alcohol is quite sticky and I didn't know how the next layers of paint would react to it. So there's a spot right there where the previous spread, when I had the protective tape on the back of this page, when I pulled it back, it tore away some of the surface of this paper from the book. So it wasn't a big deal. It didn't make a hole, but what it did was tear away some of the smooth surface of the paper, and therefore when I put this yellow paint down, it reacted, it soaked and absorbed into that spot, and that's why it looks like a deeper yellow. Now I'm ready to do a thin coat of matte medium. I'm going to use a bigger brush, soft brush, and smudge it all around. I'm trying not to get obvious paint strokes, so that's why when I put it down, I'm just smudging it around. I'm going to make sure I do a good coating of it down that middle seam so that when I do get water and paint in there, it might not bleed through. And again, I'm moving it all over the page and then smudging it with the brush. I quite like that top right image. Really fun. You see a lot of that in that kind of effect in Utah and Arizona. Love those two states. And I'm just fanning it out in different directions so that I don't get paint strokes, brush strokes. Making sure I get it all over. What it does as well, it's sealing in everything behind there. So here are some of the areas I'm reminding you that I've got that modeling paste texture, and it's, you know, again, it's going to be revealed later on. But again, putting this layer of matte medium makes a coating over the entire spread and allows me to put a lot of fun, wet colors over there, and they won't get absorbed into the background paper. They will sit on the surface of the matte medium, and therefore, even if they dry, I could always go later with rubbing alcohol and rub things back and reveal the white paper again because I have coated it. The quinacridone red is the red I usually use. This one's Pyrrole, I think, red, and I started off using it, and I knew I wanted to dilute it to be pink. I wasn't going for red in the spread. I was going for pink. And when I put it down here, after I sprayed water, it just came out really dense, really strong. That's not the effect I wanted. So I could tell as I was spreading it around that I wanted to take some of that off. I'm using the paper towel, and you can see where it goes into the crevices of the modeling paste images. But I didn't like this color, the pink it became. So while this is still wet, I'm rubbing it all back off. I decided I don't want to use that red. I'm going to go back to my quinacridone red. So because there was a full coating of matte medium, I was able to spray water and dampen my paper towel and press firmly, and I was able to release most of that red. Now I'm giving it another spray of water, and I'm going to use the quinacridone, which I love. It comes out strong as well, but when I move it around, it's going to be a prettier pink. I just thought with the lemon yellow that's on the page, which is bright, not warm. It's quite cool. I thought I'd do the same with the pink, whereas the other red would have been a warm pink. That's just my preference. Of course, use these as guidelines and use whatever colors you like. So I'm just going for a hint of the pink right now. So I'm using, I've got a lot of that pink that I'm rubbing away staying on the paper towel. So I'm smudging that around and using it as a paintbrush so that I don't waste any of that pink. And then I thought that works so well. It's like I'm glazing with the paper towel. And that's fun. It's no different than if you had furniture that you've refinished and you used a stain on a rag to wipe it in instead of paintbrushes. That's what I'm doing. And that's fun. And again, I'm just putting it down, and then if it's too bright, I can bring it back, like wipe more off. That's a much happier pink for me. I think it matches that yellow better than the other red. So right now everything's quite light, cheerful but light. I can always do layer after layer after color, but my style right now on this, my goal on this spread is to build the color up slowly and not do anything too dramatic, because you can't do the light over top as easily with this technique. So I started off light. You know, I like to do movement, I like to do depth, I like to do layers, so that will come. I'm just giving this a really good overall dry. Now I'm going to introduce another color. Actually, no, I'm going to actually use my black. I decided before I go on with another color, I'm going to do, instead of on this spread doing tissue prints over top, my bold effect overall bold image is this ink that I did with black, the pattern and the scribbles. That's what I'm kind of calling my bump forward image, and the other stuff is hopefully going to stay in the background. So this is the different direction I wanted to take. I left that for an entire day because that black fluid ink, you can see it's quite dense and syrupy looking. It's slightly raised and really shiny and very opaque. And that's why I needed that to be good and dry. And I had to do that without the blow dryer. So now I'm going to use my quinacridone Nicolazo Gold. And I would like to use that as my third color. It's going to, I'm going to start off putting it down lightly again, and dabbing away, and so that I can have all three colors of equal value to start. And then I will decide where I'm going to go from there. So in order to do that, I'm going to glaze it with a damp paper towel and use it to smudge that color around. That way, this is truly a glazing technique, and all the images underneath are still showing because it's semi-transparent. And when I do it this way, I can decide as I go along how much more I want to keep adding, how much more color do I want to bring out. But for now, I just want the spread to have my three colors of equal value and intensity, just for now. And then I can decide. There's still a little bit of white showing through as well. So it's quite light, but I really want to make this bolder and darker. The last spread was a lot lighter, so I want this one to be much brighter and bolder. So I just can, like I say, use different layer levels of color. What I did there was I smudged a bit there, and I didn't like the pattern of it, so I sprayed water on there to bring some of it back. Now I can put a thicker dab of that paint from the bottle onto these already wet paper towel that already had paint on it, and I can smudge it around. And I'm also going to use my finger because it will allow me to keep all the paint moving around without removing any of it. If I would have used paper towel, it would have stuck to the paper towel. So this way I get real intensity out of that color. I think that's amazing. Just love how strong and yet bright and brilliant that color is. You can already see now that I've got levels of depth and intensity happening. It's just like I've lit a fire to the page. And as I rub this all around, you can see that it's reacting. You can see it revealing the textures of the dots from the modeling paste and the basket weave stencil that I used. The thicker and the stronger the paint I put over top, the more it reveals that background texture. But I'm not overthinking this. I'm just randomly moving around the page. I haven't made any plan when I went from the last stage to this stage. All I'm doing is just moving along, being in the moment. Now that I've added more intensity with the Nicolazo Gold, I would like to bring a little more intensity to the pink. Eventually I'll do that to all three, but again, I want to, this is the way of controlling when and where and how much. Oh, that's really fun. It's balancing the intensity and brightness that the Nicolazo Gold did. And it's creating a lot of movement. I'm going to put a little more down and then spray it to see what kind of movement will happen with that magenta over top of the rest of the spread. That's not a bad idea, letting it flow down like that, but I feel like, and I do that technique quite often, but in this case, I feel like that's drawing attention away from the black script that I scribbled all over as my focal point. So what I'm going to do is, after I dab the center here, the pools of wet paint, I'm removing that from the center. Now I'm trying to decide what do I like, and I want to just have that red move around the page a little more. And as I put it down wet like that, and then tilt the paper, you can see how it moves into the grooves of where the modeling paste is. And the only way you can get it to go into the grooves is to add a lot, wet it, and push it in, which I'm doing there. I'm pushing it into the paper, and see how much of that pattern gets revealed, that texture. I'm still not liking that dribble pattern, so I'm dabbing it away. I just didn't want it to fight with my focal point of the page. And when I do that, it's just a light dab. Now I'm going to intensify the top right yellow just a bit, because I noticed the bottom left yellow is more predominant, and I wanted to balance the top right corner with the same intensity of yellow. So now there's a better balance between the top and the right, the bottom left and the top right. So you've got a lot of movement here now. Now I've got the same intensity of the brighter, stronger bits of yellow, pink, and orange. Those spots match. And I also have the same intensity of the pale background of the same three colors. So I wet the paper towel, and I'm just rubbing the surface so that it can remove some of the paint on top of the patterns. Because what I want to do now, where the modeling paste patterns and the dots, what I'm doing is I'm taking oil pastels, which will be permanent. They won't be able to be washed away with water. And I want to use the flat part, the side of it, and then I'm just sort of scraping it along the top surface of the page. And what happens is, where those yellow dots were from the modeling paste, now they are picking up the orange pastel. You can see just hints of orange dots now. And I'm doing the same technique in the other modeling paste areas, and hopefully what happens is it picks up and accents that pattern from the modeling paste. The oil pastel is clinging to the modeling paste patterns. Isn't that fun? So I've created a lot of depth and interest on this spread now. I don't want to do too much to the yellow, but I'm just rubbing it wherever some of those dots are, and you can see already that they're picking up the yellow dot. Look at that. So much fun. Oh, I'm just so in my zone when I do this. And like I say, I don't have to do any printed tissues over this. My focal point is the main black scribble in the middle of the spread, left to right, and then all of the rest of this is just background in different layers of intensity. I had a lot of fun with this. I hope you liked it. I'm going to take off all my protective tape because this is done. I'm not going to overdo this. I'm really happy with it. I just thought I didn't know if I did enough of that dark rust color, so I added a little more there. It wasn't all that effective, but that's okay. It also gives a little bit of a waxy look to the page, to the spread. Quite fun. So I've got a micron pen. I get these from Japan. Well, you can get them anywhere. They're made in Japan, and they're beautiful permanent black ink pens that I use for doodling and fine lines, and I'm just adding my signature. You've got to be careful with these micron pens because they're not cheap, and if you put them over top of too much matte medium or paint, it can scrape the surface of that point of the pen and ruin it. So there you have it. I'm very happy with this spread. I thank you for joining me, and I look forward to doing the next spread with you. Have a great day.